How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I am AV Obsessed, and if you're watching this video on my channel, that means that you probably are too. And if this is the first time you're seeing my channel, if you make it more than halfway through the video, I ask, please like and subscribe to the channel, because I am trying to grow this channel and make it so I can get big enough to get products sent to be my manufacturers and all that. All the perks of the big YouTube channels. I'm very small right now. Today's video is about the Douk Audio K5. The reason I'm actually checking this out is because of the fact that I recently published a review of the SMSL SU-1 DAC, and there was at least one viewer that basically in the comments on that video said that the Douk Audio K5 is a far better product. I looked at the specs of it and kind of thought, it looks like it is pretty similar, but it does have more functionality. Whether or not it has outright better sound quality, that is yet to be seen, but it definitely has more functionality. So on the front of the unit, you get a 6.35 millimeter and a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. And you get these three little toggle switches. The first one is for high and low gain. So if you have like harder to drive headphones with like a higher impedance, then you're going to want to put that in high gain. More sensitive headphones, you put that down for the low gain setting. The middle one here is actually a tone control bypass switch. So if you have it in the upward position, then the treble and bass knobs on the top for tone controls are active, and it'll change the sound. If you want the most pure sound, you flip it down and it bypasses the tone control circuitry entirely. And then the last little toggle switch here is just for switching back and forth between the USB and the optical SPDIF inputs. So basically you only get USB and optical SPDIF. On the SMSL SU-1, you get USB coaxial and optical. I kind of think, in my opinion, that only having the optical and then the USB input options on here is not a big deal. I haven't used a coaxial SPDIF connection since, I want to say, like the first DVD player that I ever owned, so so it's not a big deal. Around the back, you get your left and right RCA analog outputs. You've got an SPDIF in and out, so that is one thing that's kind of a neat feature right off the bat with this device. If you have something that only has USB audio out for a digital audio output, and you want to be able to convert that to an optical audio out to run out to like an AV receiver or a really high-end DAC for some reason, you would be able to do that with this device. You can take USB signal in and then have it go SPDIF out. That's kind of neat. I could see that being useful for testing different things. And then you've got the USB-C for the audio in, and then you've got your DC in, like barrel jack plug. So you've got pretty much whatever you need on the back for particularly, like, this thing is going to be really good for a desktop setup. And then on the top of it, you've got some indicator lights right here for if you are going to be doing DSD. It's going to tell you the bit rates for all the different DSDs and then all the different bit rates for PCM. And then you've got a volume knob, which is also power for the device. So when you turn the volume all the way down, it clicks, turns it off. And then you've got your bass with like the detent section in the middle, and your treble with the little detent section in the middle, so that if you have it in that detent section, it's supposed to basically be bypassing this. But then you've also got the bypass in the front. So that is the physical little walk around of the device. The next thing I'll do is kind of show you the much too high end of a setup that I am going to have this thing connected to test it. And I'm going to be comparing the sound quality of this directly to the sound quality of the SMSL SU-1. So this is my little test setup for comparing the SMSL SU-1 to that Douk Audio K5. You can see right here, I have them both sitting right next to each other. Right now, the SMSL SU-1 is hooked up, And basically it's just a USB A to C cable coming from the Blue Sound icon, which is in here. And the USB is going straight up into the SMSL SU-1 right now. And then I am using the Wire World. Oh man, I can't remember the model number of the RCA cables, but they're Wire World RCA cables. Yes, Wire World Luna 10, I just remembered. RCA cables going out from that unit into a MCIntosh C49 preamp, and that goes into the MCIntosh MC462 power amp. Like I said, I am hooking these very affordable audio devices up to far too expensive of audio devices, but I think it's important to test these entry-level devices with extremely expensive things, because then that's like the best way to test their limit. If I was connecting these things to, you know, a pair of like $500 powered speakers, you probably would never be able to hear the difference. So very high-end front-end electronics. So going out from that stuff into my Canton Vento 896.2 towers. And also I do have the SVS SB-4000 hooked up to that MCIntosh C49 preamp. So I get clean flat bass down to like 11 or 12 hertz with this setup. And these towers go all the way up like pretty cleanly up to 20 kilohertz. So yeah, this is gonna be like the ultimate test to compare if there's gonna be a sound quality difference between the SMSL SU-1 and the Douk Audio K5. So what is in the box for the Douk Audio K5? For one thing, it's not sealed in any way, so you just pop it right open. And then on the top is some foam. And then you get a actually like pretty decently thick owner's manual. And then an optical audio cable. Looks like it's probably, if I had to guess, like 3 feet long, maybe 4. Probably won't use that one. You get a, let's see, a USB A to C cable so that you can connect it to your PC, because that is kind of the primary way they advertise this thing. And then the unit itself, oh wait, also I guess there is a power brick in here. Now I believe you can power it off of the USB-C cable alone. I haven't checked yet because this video is going to be shot out of order. This is the first part that I'm recording, and then the second part is going to be the intro, and then the third part is going to be my actual review of it. But there is a power cable in here, but I believe you don't need that. But I guess if you wanted to run the unit off of just the optical SP diff, then it would make sense to have that cable. And then the actual unit itself in a little plastic baggie. This is my first time actually handling it, so it feels very similar in build to the SMSL SU-1. But yeah, that is the unboxing experience. So after listening on my exorbitantly high-end 2-channel system, comparing these two DACs, the SMSL SU-1 to the Douk Audio K5, which one would I say is the winner? Well, this is probably going to be an answer that pisses off some people, but I would say you guys are the winners, because they sound so similar that even on a extremely high-end 2-channel system like this, I can barely hear a difference. So if you're going to be connecting these like on your desktop and using them with powered speakers, there's no way that you'd ever hear a difference. There is such a minute difference between the two, like, and it's not even like I would say one sounds better over the other, which is kind of insane because of the fact that this uses that AKM 4493 DAC chip. This is using the ESS Sabre 9038 Q2M DAC chip. So they're so different, but they're also so similar in that they're just small, affordable, like chip-based DACs with chip-based op amps and everything. Like, there is very little difference in the sound quality between the two. Being extremely nitpicky and listening for like the past couple of hours on these two, or with these two DACs connected to my very high-end sound system, I would say that the SMSL SU-1, if you don't need the features that the K5 offers, buy the SU-1, just because there is a, and now this is, I can't stress enough how minute the difference is here. There is a very small hiss that I noticed when this was in the signal chain versus this. So the K5 has a very, it's still an extremely low, like quiet noise floor, but, and this was with the tone control bypass turned on. When I turned the tone control bypass off and messed around with the tone controls, it introduced quite a bit more noise. So I wouldn't use that unless you absolutely needed to. It's still not terrible. Like, you can't hear it from a seating position, but if you're using them with very sensitive speakers and you're sitting very close to them, which with this kind of device, that's pretty much what it's designed for, the tone controls do increase the noise floor by a noticeable amount. I could hear the hiss coming from the tweeters on my speakers when I was about a foot away. With a tone control bypass or like pure direct mode or whatever you want to call it enabled, I had to get my ear within about 3 inches of the tweeter, but then I could hear a very, very quiet hiss coming from the tweeter. And then with the SMSL SU-1, it's basically nothing. Like, you pretty much have to press your ear up against the tweeter to hear any kind of hiss or anything. So the noise floor on the SU-1 is going to be a little tiny bit better. And then, like I was saying, it's not so much that one of these sounds better than the other. They just sound slightly different with the SU-1. It's funny because, like, you hear a lot of people talk about like a forward sounding or a laid back sounding device. The SU-1, in my listening tests, most of the time it seemed like somehow the vocalist was taller using this DAC. When I was using the Douk K5, the vocalist seemed to be coming from right in between the speakers down here, which obviously makes like more sense because you would think that it would come from the center image of the two speakers, but somehow with this SU-1, the vocalist, it wasn't more forward, it was like the vocalist seemed like they were taller. Like it almost sounded like the sound was coming from the center channel. And that's actually more similar to what it sounds like when I use the DAC that's built into the MCIntosh preamp as well. That was the biggest difference in sound that I noticed. I think with the SU-1, I was able to hear a very slight difference in like the background vocalists as well. Like this one, you could hear the vocalists in the background, but they were kind of like within the same part of the soundstage as the main singer, versus with the SU-1 background vocalists, you could hear they sounded like they were a little bit further back and spread out more. So there are some very minute differences, but it's just an unbelievably small difference. So basically that's why I say if you don't need anything except for a raw, like bare DAC, like that's what this guy is. Like if you just need something to convert your analog or your digital signal, whether it's a USB, coaxial, or optical SPDIF, to RCA outs, and you want something that's going to do it very well at a very affordable price, get the SU-1. Now, if you need something that has some extra features, like I could see this thing being like the absolute perfect device for your desktop if you use professional grade studio monitors as your desktop speakers. That is, I honestly kind of feel like what this thing is designed for, because studio monitors are different from normal powered speakers in that they're both completely independent from each other. So each one has just power. Usually they just have power in and then XLR and like the 1/4" TRS connector, and then their own volume, and then some of them have tone controls and stuff like that. But those are completely independent. So you can't just run, like if you were running out of your PC, you can't plug a 3.5mm to dual RCA jacks cable into your PC and run each of the RCA jacks to your powered monitors, because each one of those speakers has its own volume control. But with this device, you can essentially have this sitting below your monitor, have a USB-C cable coming out of your PC and going into the USB-C port on this thing, and then run RCA cables. This is actually something I think is kind of funny. I feel like they should have just, instead of having RCA outs on here, they should have put 1/4" TRS jacks, and then maybe just threw in a pair of 1/4" TRS to RCA adapter cables, because then if someone is using this with professional studio monitors, those typically don't have RCA inputs on them. So you could just buy those speakers, have your professional studio monitors, buy this, and then run your 1/4" TRS cable from here into each speaker. And then the great thing about that would be you have a centralized volume control. You have your headphone jack here, so if you're trying to mix audio and you want to hear what it sounds like on headphones and then on your studio monitors, you could switch back and forth very easily with this. And if your studio monitors need some tone control correction, you could do that on this device as well. So I think this thing is pretty much the most perfect device for that use case, and the sound quality that comes from it is good enough to where when I hooked this system or this DAC up to a $20,000+ hi-fi 2-channel stereo system, I could barely hear a difference between this and that SMSL SU-1. And honestly, the SMSL SU-1, when I was comparing it to the DAC that's in the MCIntosh C49 preamp, there's still also a very, very minute difference between those DACs. So the sound quality you're going to get from this is going to be pretty much good enough for anything that you could possibly want to use it for. And then it also offers a lot more features than something like the SU-1. So if you are using this in a desktop situation where you don't have centralized volume control like I do with my Swans, then this is going to be the ideal device to use for that. Now in my scenario, since I use the Swan M200s, the original version that only has RCA inputs, but those speakers have their own volume control because they're not professional studio monitors. They're just powered bookshelves where one is the main speaker and then there's a tether cable that goes from one to the other. So you have tone controls and volume control directly on the main speaker. I don't need the features of this device. So for me, I'm hooking this back up at my desktop setup once I'm done with this video. But if I wanted to step up my game essentially and get myself a good high quality pair of studio monitors versus just powered bookshelves, this would be the device to get. After all of that I just talked about, the one thing that I feel like this thing is lacking, because in the situation that I'm talking about where you might be wanting to use this with professional studio monitors, a lot of the time, especially if you buy the smaller ones with the 4.5 or the 5.25" woofers, you want to augment the bass with a subwoofer. The one thing I think that they missed with this device is they should have put a dedicated subwoofer out on it. That would have just made it basically perfect, because yeah, you might want to augment the sound with a subwoofer. I mean, I guess technically you could do some Y cables from this so that you have both the left and the right RCAs going into the subwoofer and the left and the right RCAs going to your speakers. So there are workarounds, but it would have been a very good idea, I think, for them to add a dedicated subwoofer out on this thing. But that is really my only complaint. At its current price of $89, I actually got lucky and purchased this one when it was on sale for $69. Nice. Yeah, I think this is a great little device. The one omission, I think, is the subwoofer out. So that's my conclusion. The people that were in the comments when I did the SU-1 video, you're right in a way, but not 100%, because the sound quality of the SU-1, like I would say, is 2% better than the Douk Audio K5. But yes, the K5 offers a lot more features. It's a lot more versatile of a little desktop DAC slash volume control slash tone control. It's a lot more versatile device, but the sound quality of the SU-1 is just literally like the most minute amount better. So yeah, if you guys like this video, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up and click the bell so that you're notified when the next video comes out. And I will see you guys in the next one.